The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is Free Kicks. Another show. It's another Free Kicks, which means it's time to play another Premier League walkout music.
Okay.
You ready for this one?
Yep.
All right, I'll tell you the name of the group and the song, because I don't think it's going to help. The song is called Palladio, and it's by Escala, and it sounds something like this. Pretty dramatic, right?
It is, that's for sure.
So what club uses that one?
Jeez, that's a great question. Really good one. I'm going to go with a random guess. Let's go with Fulham.
That is correct.
No! Yes!
That is correct. That is Fulham's song. I guess in the second half, they sometimes come out to London Calling by The Clash, or I've Got a Feeling by the Black Eyed Peas, but that dramatic piece of music there called Palladio is what they use at the beginning of the games. And I kind of like that one, I gotta say. It does seem imposing to the other team.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, it's time for another edition of Free Kicks.
And now, Free Kicks. Free Kicks with Illinois Youth Soccer Association's Director of Coaching, Adam Howarth, and Rick Kemper.
So last week we talked about the big games that were coming. We mentioned Aston Villa versus Chelsea. We mentioned Liverpool versus Manchester City. Let's talk about those games because they were both, I think, excellent games. I think you probably weren't thrilled with the outcome of that first one. But you have to admit, it is something about seeing Marcus Rashford again playing well. He's one of these guys that you root for.
Exactly. He's a good guy, does a lot of good things, and I actually picked him up on my fantasy team. We were talking about fantasy teams earlier today, but I picked him up because I knew as soon as he joined Aston Villa, he'd be good. And that's exactly what took place, because it was the whole new club bounce effect. I mean, we know he's a good player, and you could see that. I mean, he set up both goals. The second goal, that was a tough one to have that 90th minute with the goalie had a bit of a shocker.
Oh boy, that was a bad goalie move there.
I mean, it was a good shot, but, just so tough. And this is a guy that's just come in as a new goalkeeper, right? So, because they were unhappy with the previous one. So, it was a tough one. Chelsea played better. I thought Aston Villa had spurts, but I thought Chelsea controlled most of the game, to be fair. Had chances. You can see that Cole Palmer's definitely lacking in confidence as well. Had a couple opportunities to finish chances that he would have done. But I was happy with the Chelsea performance, but not the result.
Right.
Aston Villa they do what they do. Their quality of players showed through. And especially, one thing I noticed was the substitutions. I thought Aston Villa just subbed better.
Yeah.
They created a little bit more urgency with the players that they brought on. So especially with, obviously,
Asensio.
Marcus Rashford. I think Asensio started, But Marcus Rashford coming on, and even Leon Bailey kind of gave a little bit of a spurt to it as well. So
they're starting to get a pretty deep bench there at Aston Villa.
No question. I mean, I look at their bench, and I was looking at Chelsea's bench. There were a lot of youngsters on there, but when you look at Villa's bench, you've got some serious internationals on the bench there. So, it's getting some depth. So I think they're building something. I think there's something there that could definitely have an impact on down the line. I think if these guys all stay together, I think they can have a serious run next year at the league for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I do say that I watched that whole game, and the first half I thought Chelsea was excellent. I mean, they really looked good. I was like, okay, they're back. They did kind of, I don't know, ran out of gas in the second half. I mean, you're mentioning the subs. I was watching it with my son, who's a huge Chelsea fan, and I said, well, Chelsea can bring in some big talent too. He goes, look at who's on the bench. There's really not much to bring in.
Yeah, exactly.
How's that possible with all the manpower? Is everybody injured? The whole team is injured?
There's a lot of injuries. There is a serious amount of injuries. You've got, obviously, Jackson's out. You've got Madueke's out. There's Mudrik's out. So you've got all of these players that have been, players who've been in a fair bit are out. Lavia's out. So all these players that play quite a bit are quite injured. So they've had to go with a little bit of the youth in terms of who they are and where they're at. But still no excuse. I mean, there's still enough talent for them to be able to be successful, you would expect. But, these things happen. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, it was one of those weeks where it seemed like none of the top teams wanted to win. Other than Liverpool, which, again, looked pretty strong against Man City. The thing that I like about this Liverpool team is they have more than one way of winning.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I think this is painful for me to say this because you know how much I love the hugging German. But it seems like Arne Slot is a little more adaptive. Like he's able to change things for the moment because the way they played against Man City is totally different than they played against anybody else all year.
Totally agree with you. He's able to make the changes when he needs to, and they were just superior in every single department on the field. They opened up Manchester City. They looked good on counters. Sometimes they would have to drop in and defend. But, the play like Salah is just obviously continued his high level. They better sign him to a good contract. Szoboszlai was fantastic again as well. He's starting to come into his own. He's really playing at an extremely high level and just everything about the team in terms of who they are. Van Dijk is solid in the back. Konate's now back. You got a decent goalie. You got everything. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why they can't do it, and that's why they've been so good, not only in the league but also in the Champions League. Got players coming off the bench that make a difference. So it's I can probably say, it's probably fair to say, I'm going to go out on a limb, the league is over.
Yeah, I think so.
Crown them the champions. 11 points ahead with 11 games left. Yeah, it's done and dusted.
Yeah, I mean, if Man City's not going to be the team to come in to do it, who is?
Yes, exactly.
That's my theory. All right. Well, we don't have that many games coming up this weekend. It's going to be an FA Cup weekend. So, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the Champions League because we are now to the round of 16 matchups, and the games begin next week. And there are some great matchups. Did you look at the matchups in this?
Unbelievable. I mean, and if you look at the bracket, if you go to the UEFA.com, it's got the bracket here, and it's really good because you can see what happens if they win and who goes through. And these are all 2 legs, so these all start next week.
Right.
The top half of the bracket is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got PSV Arsenal, Real Madrid Atletico, PSG Liverpool, Club Brugge, and Aston Villa. So you've got basically the 3 English teams in the bracket.
Right.
So they're all on a collision course to play each other. And then you add in Real Madrid.
And PSG.
And PSG. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm like, what the heck? And then in the bottom half, no offense, but
yeah, I'm with you.
It's not half as good. Now, again, this is because of the seeding, and I get it. It's all turned out. But my goodness, this hasn't turned out well. You got Bayern Munich, you got Dortmund, Benfica, Barcelona, Feyenoord, Inter, all quality teams.
Yeah.
Leverkusen.
All the German teams
in one half and then all the English in the other.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. But there's some serious matches. PSG, Liverpool, really? In the round of 16? Come on.
I know. That's really unfair, I think. That's a very tough one. But if you're Liverpool, you got to beat all these teams. So
yeah, that's true.
And if you're PSG, they're even more upset, I'm guessing. You know what I mean? Than Liverpool is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's 2 legs, so we've got 2 legs again. So we play next week, and then the following week, and then they get to the quarterfinals, and then the final is basically the end of May, right? So it's kind of around that Memorial Day weekend for us. So it should be really, really exciting. So, yeah, we might be together watching that game, maybe watching Liverpool in the final.
Yeah, we might be. So we're looking at some Spanish on Spanish action. You got Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid. That's an interesting matchup in this round.
Yeah, for sure.
You got German on German. You got Leverkusen versus Bayern. That's a big matchup. They're arch rivals now in the Bundesliga. Yeah. So yeah, I'm marking it down for a fun couple of weeks to watch those games for sure. Definitely.
And this is what's exciting about this. It really counts because every game counts, although it's still 2 legs.
Right.
That second leg's going to mean so much. And it's always going to be at the higher seed. So whoever's the high seed, for example, Liverpool will be playing at Anfield for the second game. So all those teams there, it's going to be really exciting. So, but realistically, you could get a quarterfinal mix up of, let's say our favorite teams win. You got Arsenal. Let's say Arsenal wins, they'll play Real Madrid in the quarterfinals.
Wow.
Let's say Liverpool wins, they'll play Aston Villa possibly in the quarterfinals. And then you've got Barcelona and Dortmund possibly, Bayern against either Inter or final. So there's going to be some really good matchups even in the quarters too. So lots to look forward to.
That's cool. All right, so it's time for Weird Stat of the Week. Last week we talked about the likelihood of all 3 of the recently promoted clubs going back down again. And it's really looking more and more like that's going to happen.
Especially after the results, yeah, for sure.
Yes. So my question was, how many times has that happened before? And I figured it happened a lot of times, but I was surprised to find out that is not the case. Guess how many times that has happened?
I would say, I know it's happened at least once before. I'm going to go with 2 times.
That's right. It's only happened twice, which is amazing. But it happened last year.
Yeah.
With Burnley, Luton Town, and Sheffield United all going back down. Right. But the only other time it happened was in the 97-98 season when Barnsley, Bolton Wanderers, and Crystal Palace all went up and down in the same year.
Wow, that's crazy. By the way, just so you know, for those of you who follow, so Luton, who got relegated last year, I don't know if you've seen, they are bottom of the championship right now. So they could go double relegation, which would be
they
went horrendous.
Up that quickly too, didn't they?
Yes, exactly. So they went. So they it's literally every year something's happening. They're either up, they're all down. But that's the beauty of this pyramid, right? This is what
I know
we love so much about the promotion and relegation. We'll get there one day. I know. I feel in the United States, we'll get there one day. It may be a few years away, but we'll get there.
I just can't see an owner of an American club going, you know what, I'll take the chance that we go up or we go down. I mean, as a longtime Cubs fan, Chicago Cubs baseball. How many times in my lifetime did they finish in last place? They would be in the 5th division or whatever it is now.
That's true. They'll be playing the Schaumburg Boomers or something. Yeah, right. Exactly. But I get it. I understand it. I think it's just the makeup, and I know in the United States, we're a little bit different in terms of how we do our sports. And like you said, the owners are going to have a big factor. But, we see it in some areas. I think it may not happen in our lifetime. We may be past and gone. But I think at some point down the road, I think this would just add so much to everything. So
it just makes it more exciting.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, every week we can talk about who's at the top, who's at the bottom, who's doing well in the lower leagues. It just gives you more to talk about as fans. It gives you, it's one of those things. Once you buy into this sport, which I obviously have done, I just absolutely love it. it's so much fun. And it's not just the Premier League that does it. It's all the other leagues in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
we've got to follow what's going on. And there is discussions of maybe going to the same calendar year as most European teams. So we'd have to obviously have some type of a winter break. But, things are happening. So maybe we can talk about that in our Chicago news. Here we go.
Oh, well, as it turns out, Free Kicks is brought to you by the Illinois Youth Soccer Association.
Illinois Youth Soccer has been proudly serving the Illinois soccer community since 1975 and has a strong history of credibility. Illinois Youth Soccer is a non-profit corporation, official state association and charter member of the U.S. Soccer Federation, administers U.S. Soccer Federation coaching programs, and the U.S. Soccer Federation referee program. For more information, go to illinoisyouthsoccer.org.
Okay, and I guess there's some Chicago area news.
Of course. Yeah.
And now the latest Chicago area soccer news. Soccer news with Coach Adam. Coach Adam.
Dying to hear this.
Yes, big news always happens. So we are going to tease it, but we have our first. We created a premier club program for all of our clubs that are being part of everything that's going on, trying to kind of access this whole idea of an accreditation program. And we have our first winner, but I'm going to tease it because I can't say who it is because we haven't released it. But I can tell you it is a Chicagoland club. So we're excited for them to be the very first premier club that's been part of the accreditation program. It was an evolvement of our previous 5-star program. So I've been heavily involved in trying to make sure that we continue engage all of our clubs to be part of it. So congrats to this Chicagoland club. You'll hear more about that this week. So it's a good little teaser. There you go. That's what I like.
All right.
But it's exciting. Cool. But yeah, lots of things happening. And then, as the snow is melting, Rick, it's starting to warm up. It's perfect time. We got ourselves an MLS game this weekend. Chicago Fire is back in action. First home game. So that's going to be really exciting for them under the new leadership of Greg. So we should be should be a really good match to watch them play. Will be probably a little chilly out there. It'll be interesting to see how the field's holding up. They're playing at Soldier Field on Saturday night, but they play DC United. So excited to see how they do this year. So good luck to the Fire. Hopefully things can move forward and we can get some of our Chicago teams back up and make sure that we start winning. Because I know the Cubs are going to win. They'll be fine. They'll win some games. But we've had a rough year. We've definitely had a rough year in Chicago with our teams. So we need Greg Berhalter and the Fire to kind of pump us up. Unfortunately, they lost last week, but they did look better. I must confess, they definitely look better. They scored some goals. They got a couple of nice little players. I think could be in for a good season as long as they tighten up their defense. And they did have a tough game. Columbus Crew, who've been very good the last few years, 2-time champions recently. So they'll be fine. So I think we're definitely in for a good season.
Well, we're taking a group of about 100 of Green White to see the Fire versus Miami.
Man, that's a good game
in April. So looking forward to that.
That'll be good. Yeah, definitely. Mr. Messi might be playing. You never know.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
You just never know.
All right, it's time for another feature.
Time now to guess the Premier League star.
Okay, so this is definitely a star. This week's person. He's 29 years old. And he's playing with his first Premier League team.
Okay.
All right. So he may be new to the Premier League, but he's definitely not new to international soccer. I mean, he's previously played professionally in France and Spain, and he is from one of those countries.
He's from France or Spain.
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
He has the same first name as the manager of Fulham.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Trying to think of my Marcos.
He's an attacking midfielder.
attacking midfielder.
He wears number 21.
Is he on a top 14?
Nope. Although they're not one of the bottom teams either. I mean, they're in the hunt.
They're in the hunt. Okay.
He scored this past weekend.
Scored this past weekend. Wow. Will he be playing in the South Coast? Is he on a South Coast team?
He is
of
not.
England?
He is not.
Man, this is a tough
I
one.
believe this club is considered a Midlands club.
Okay, all right. That helps. That definitely helps. So he's definitely playing for Aston Villa, I would say.
Yes.
He's scored a couple of goals. That makes your life a little easier. Of course, there you go. You just forget. So he's on loan currently.
Yes, he is. Yes.
So there you go. If you had said he was on loan, that would have. Boom.
I don't want to make it easy.
I know. Marco Asensio on loan from Real Madrid, scored 2 goals, 1 good one. Yeah, one not so good one. But yeah, he was good. I mean, and to be fair, I thought he was. He had a good game. I don't think he was impacted. Obviously, Rashford came in and just made a massive difference in the game. He was definitely the guy. But ultimately, he still scores the goals, right? Puts them in the back of the net, even though if you look at Chelsea's performance, you could probably say they probably deserve to get something out of that game. But that's neither here nor there. We'll see.
Well, he's a 3-time Champions League winner with Real Madrid, but he is actually on loan from PSG.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Because I think there was some blow up or something there at Madrid.
Yeah, he's been around. Yeah, jumped around a little bit. So, yeah, Real Madrid, and then he went on. He's been on loan to like a whole bunch of teams. To be fair,
yeah.
I think he was. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, it's time for this great feature.
Now time for Adam's Weekend Soccer TV Tip.
We need you more than ever on weekends when there's not a regular Premier League schedule.
Yeah. There's lots of good games going on. Like I said, the MLS is going to be back in action on Saturday night. But before that, you've got some games to watch. And I'm going to focus in on the Saturday. So we've got the FA Cup, right? So FA Cup games, we're down to, what we got? The final, was it 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? Final 16, right? So it's the 16, round of 16, the Sweet 16 as they call it, as we get ready for our basketball setups here. But 2 good games. I think Saturday, is going to be a good one. Now, I'm going to kind of pick a kind of a random one. You may think, why would I want to watch it? But I think the atmosphere is going to be good. So in our office, we have a big Burnley fan. His name's Mick Gillespie. He works with us now. And they're in the potential of getting into a quarterfinal match. So they're playing away, but it's their local rivals in Lancashire area, Preston North End. That's going to be a pretty intense game. So both championship teams, definitely worth watching. And, you're guaranteed at least, and we talked about this before, a championship team in the quarterfinals. So that's exciting. And then the other game I would recommend, so that's an early kickoff. So I know you may not be getting up for that one. That's the 6:30 kickoff.
Yes.
But the one that I think you should watch, and I think it's got an upset written all over it because they just knocked out your Liverpudlians.
Okay.
Maybe if they do this, if they knock out Liverpool, Manchester City, they've got to have their name on the cup. There's no question. Manchester City at home against Plymouth Argyle.
Yeah.
So Plymouth Argyle are third from bottom. They were bottom of the championship. They've now moved up. They've got a new manager. Unfortunately, Wayne Rooney didn't last, but since they've got the new manager, they're unbeaten in their last 5 games. It's crazy how it works. And they could knock them off. I mean, you just never know. What's Man City playing for? They're out of the Champions League.
Yeah. Potentially
out of the Cup. This they're probably going to bring their big guns because this is they're really their only big chance to win some silverware this year.
That's true.
Who would have thought you would be saying that this time at the start of the year, but never mind. But
it will be a stronger lineup than the one Liverpool brought out there because, as I mentioned last week, I think I played 14 minutes in that game, and I'm 62 years old. So, they did kind of dig deep into the bench for that.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And to be fair, what's happening very soon is we do have the Carabao Cup coming up, right? So looking at what's going to be happening. So you've got the final, that's on March 16th. So we're just a few weeks away. Liverpool, Newcastle. So that's going to be our first bit of silverware for those two teams potentially. Newcastle are going to be really pumped up to win it because they haven't won a trophy since 1735. So it's been a little while.
To be fair, in the 1735 season, they were dominant.
They were good. Yeah. Nobody else were better. You're absolutely right. So we hope that Newcastle can get it. I know you're a Liverpool fan. Sorry, I almost said Liverpool fan. You want to get that. They was talking about a quadruple. Maybe it's just the treble now.
Yeah.
Hey, all that stuff is rubbish. They just got to win. So
just win one.
Just win.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think they're defending champions of the Carabao Cup.
That is true. That's true. Yes.
So yes. Wow. Yeah. Newcastle hasn't won one since that other team showed up with diphtheria. And
that's right. They won on a default. Yes. Sorry, Newcastle fans, but yeah, you're definitely. It's definitely due. It's definitely due.
Oh no, they've got the plague. All right. Exactly. Well, so we have people to think. Oh wait, we also have to say Free Kicks is brought to you by the Green White Soccer Club. As I mentioned, we're bringing a bunch of people over to see the Chicago Fire in a few months. But Green White has their tryouts in April. We'll tell you more about that next time. Go to greenwhitesoccer.org. All right. People to thank. We need to thank our executive producer, Tony Lasana, with Opie Shows. We need to thank Ed Silla with the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Great Talk Radio isn't dead. Just moved to a better place with RadioMisfits.com. And we're not going to be around next week because Adam's leaving town again.
Yep.
We've got quite the schedule. Where are you going this time?
Going to go to Holland. Excited about that.
Okay. Let's see. That's kind of hard to beat.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting a full report when he gets back in 2 weeks. And I promised you I'd get you out by 9:30, Adam. It's 9:28.
Perfect. So, love it.
Yes. We'll be back again in 2 weeks for another episode of Free Kicks.
The proceeding was a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Find our other great shows on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at RadioMisfits.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?